Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to talk about a seller net sheet. So what in the world is that?
Well, and we're really talking about the expenses. What should you plan if you're going to sell your home? What does it cost to sell? And so we want to cover a few of those things. And as Brandy said, we're really going to focus on the net sheet, or the expenses that other people refer to as closing costs. We'll talk about how do we get to that bottom line, and then stay tuned. But if you watch to the end, we will talk about some expenses that, as a seller, we would advise you to just bear in mind some extra costs, but they don't show up on the actual real estate transaction accounting sheet. So let's dive into this, all right?
All right, so first thing that's going to come up on your net sheet is commissions.
That's right. And so it's kind of hard to put a number to that. Why? Because it is different for every transaction. And so the commissions are negotiated, and they're basically set on the front end when that listing is taken, and you as a seller would know exactly what those are, what they're going to be. Generally, it's expressed as a percentage, not always, but generally it's expressed as a percentage of the sales price. And so those are set on the front end, and you'll know those going into it. So the first line item would be the real estate agent commission, and then after that we start getting into costs like what people refer to as closing costs.
Right.
So let's talk about what are the seller closing costs. And we should give one more caveat here. This does actually vary from region to region, not really according to the law per se, but more so just what's customary. There are some parts of Alabama where it's customary that the seller pays none of the title and only part of the attorney. And then there are other parts of Alabama, like for here locally in Birmingham, it is extremely customary for the seller to pay part of the title as well as split part of the attorney. So some of this will vary, but those are the next typical line items on your net sheet, which is going to be typically probably $600, $700, $800, somewhere in that range for half of the attorney fees. Of course, the buyer would have the other half of that, and then the title fee or the title insurance is really going to depend on the price of the house. In other words, it's like any other insurance policy. The more you insure, the higher the policy goes. I mean, I generally estimate somewhere between $700 and $1,500 for a majority of the sales that we see. But again, that's going to vary. There is a specific calculation for that, and your agent will be able to give that to you based on the price of your home and the price of the contract. So we've got the commissions, we've got the title and attorney, and so another piece that you want to factor in,
and that would be property tax.
So prorated taxes, right? I mean, generally what happens is the seller pays for the current year's property tax up to the date of sale. So they pay for the property tax, prorated for the days that they actually own that property, and then the buyer is responsible for the property tax for the days afterwards. And so again, it's not that the seller has to bring money to pay for those taxes. Generally, that's handled in a credit from the seller to the buyer, or vice versa, depending on the municipality that you live in. So property taxes. All right, and one more thing that we see from time to time, although we haven't seen as much of it in the last 3 to 4 years, we are starting to see it now, and it's something I would want you as a seller to be aware of, is actually seller concessions in buyers' closing costs. Right? So typically the buyer is responsible for their lender fees, which are closing costs, as well as any inspections that they do. But with negotiation, and depending on how many offers and what kind of offer you get as a seller, you might choose to offer the buyer some concessions in helping with their closing costs. And so that is another line item. And it can vary. I mean, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000. I've seen a wide range. So again, it's not really a set fee. It's more a matter of negotiation, and just seeing, again, if you have only one offer and you want to make this transaction work, it might be that if that buyer asks for a couple $1,000s in closing costs, or $3,000 or $6,000, it might be worth it to you as a seller to give them that at closing. Okay, so here's what happens. You have the price of the house. From that, again, as we said, you deduct the closing costs, and then you deduct the title and attorney, any other seller concessions, give credits back or forth for prorated taxes, prorated anything else there to do with the company. And from that, mathematically, you come up with a bottom line. No matter what that number is, if you owe a mortgage, we would then deduct the mortgage from that. And what's left over is basically what you net from the sale, or in other words, what I generally refer to as this is your walk-away money. This is the money that after everything is paid, free and clear, this is what you would walk away with. Now, to make things a little better, some positive things are that when you do sell your home, you are probably going to have an escrow account where they're holding your property tax that you've accrued over this current year and your home insurance. The balance of that account will get returned to you once that mortgage has been paid in full on the day of closing. It may take a few days to get back there to you, but you'll get that money back. Now, for those of you who wondered what else could there be, you stayed to the end. What's next?
So these are some things that, this is your real estate net sheet that we just went through, but there are also other expenses that, maybe your house is absolutely perfect and it doesn't need any extras, but just in case you've been living in it, there's things like, first of all, decluttering. That may or may not cost you any money, but depending on if you're in a hurry or need to get out quickly, you might need to hire someone to come in and pack up your things. That's not uncommon. Another thing to think about is your landscaping. If you've let it get kind of wild and crazy out there in the yard, then, hiring a landscape person to come in and just kind of trim back those shrubs and clean up the yard a little bit, it's going to make your house more desirable for buyers.
That's right. Well, and I think one other thing to remember too is it's not really so much about have you taken care of your home or not, as much as if you're going to sell it, as if you were going to sell your car to a prospective buyer. Generally, most people would go wash the car that day, right? You're laughing because I didn't say wash. That's why you're laughing. But anyway. So just as if you were going to sell your car, in the same way, most people would go wash the car that day and present it to a prospective buyer when it's clean and shiny. We want to do the same thing for your house. So even if you've taken very good care of it, to put some fresh pine straw or some fresh mulch, to have some of the paint, maybe the trim tidied up, the decluttering process, and really a major deep cleaning, not just your regular cleaning, but deep cleaning can be such a huge value, as well as a fresh coat of paint on the inside.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. You want it to look as good as possible. And if it's like our house, we painted not that long ago, but there's also little dirty handprints on the wall. So it's just put yourself in your buyer's position, and if you're walking into a home, you want to see it at its best, and that's what your buyers want too. The last thing on that list is moving costs. Maybe you have some teenage sons and they can load all the stuff, and that's great. Maybe you have some buddies from work or whatever, but in case you don't, factor in renting a truck if you're going to do it yourself, or also hiring movers, because that's an additional expense as well, just so you're not caught off guard in a panic and worried about how you're going to pay for everything. And
then, some people, I find some sellers have so much pride in their home and they care so much about it. They've taken great care of it. Certainly to get it ready to sell, they've done all of these things. Right. And sometimes they actually will pay for another cleaning after they've moved out, so that just to be warm and welcoming to the next family or the next person that will occupy that space and live there, do life there, make memories there. They just want to kind of hand that over. Again, small expense for a huge gesture for people. So, all right, so we've covered from a transaction, from an accounting standpoint, what are the numbers, how do they come out, but we've also talked about just some things to think about that are, number one, going to get your home ready, and then number two, are actually a part of that sales and moving process. And so hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you said, oh my gosh, I need to do this, but I don't really have the money to do what it takes, that's when I would say, as you hire a realtor to be an advocate for you, that realtor probably has a few ideas that can help out with getting everything ready and then going through with the sale. So don't give up if these numbers seem intimidating to you. We have answers. I feel like in many times we as realtors are not just working through sales transactions, but we're problem solvers. And that's really what Brandy and I enjoy doing. So anything else to add with that?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, we are Mike and Brandy Brown with Keller Williams in Birmingham, Alabama. We look forward to working with you. Feel free to reach out to us because we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice here in Central Alabama. 205-368-5995, or always reach out to us via email, info@mbrownrealty.com. Thanks.